Okay. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Let's see here. This is the evening making sounds. It is. Okay. How are we all tonight? Hey, Palm Dad. Hey, Lily. Hey, Evan. How's it going? We are getting set up here. I'm waiting on Brooks for a few minutes. So we're gonna have a talk about the Yemeni civil war and the United States, and probably some bits about what we pay attention to as Americans and what we don't, and whether it's hypocritical to start paying attention when it pops into the news. So, for those who missed it, Yemen is a country situated under Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Gulf, right around the Gulf of Aden into the entrance to the Red Sea. And it has made the news recently because the Houthis, which are a rebel group and a terrorist organization in Yemen, have been firing missiles and drones at ships transiting the Red Sea, specific ships transiting the Red Sea. Anyone who hang on a second. Anyone who is not Russian or Iranian, basically, is getting shot at. Sorry, directions. Planning, not my strong suit. So yeah, that is kind of been the situation. This has prompted the United States and several other countries to launch airstrikes and missile strikes into Yemeni territory in an attempt to make the Houthis stop, which is a silly idea. It's not going to make them stop because they wanted us to do that. And that's kind of where we're sitting. Uh, there were more strikes launched tonight, actually, on the news, uh, supposedly at Yemeni missile site or Houthi missile sites. This is my second desktop spot. My other one's very messy. Yemeni missile strikes and missile sites and supply depots, and whether or not that's going to make is going to be sufficient to get them to stop is unlikely. The the Houthis have been around since the 90s, and they are very capable of surviving. All right, Brooks is here. I'm going to drag him in. Hey, Brooks, how's it going?
Going good, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad today. About.
Let's see. Let's get some color going here. Hey, there we go. Nice brutal purple. I like it.
There, now it fits. All right. I was just giving people a brief rundown of what's been happening in the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea.
Oh, I'm unaware for today. I've been, I was on calls actually with 3 different countries in the region, just for work stuff, Egypt, Dubai, and other places. So totally unaware of whatever the fuck's happening. So I was up till like 5 in the morning on phone calls.
Yeah, it was another night of airstrikes a couple hours ago.
Shocking.
Probably not going to work. Not at least the way that people want them to.
I mean, no, of course not. Of course not. Nothing we do is ever good. Like we don't, not good in like moral sense, but like effective. We're not very good at being effective, I think would be the answer.
Not in the Middle East, not in the last 20 years, no. Actually, not in the last 30, if you really think about it.
I would go back further than that. Where have we been effective? The Balkans, maybe. A little
They-
Milosevic shit we
they-
kind of inserted ourselves in.
have temporarily at least stopped killing each other. Japan, Germany, that's it. That's in it for last. So actually, it's really
that's
interesting.
that's literally, we're getting really close to that almost being a century ago. Like I know it's 20 years out, but that's 80 years.
Well, it's funny to bring that up because yesterday, literally in the middle of when I was doing something, a friend of mine is going through the training program to be promoted to 04 in the military, which is basically an extra master's degree. And she sent me one of her writing prompts, and every one of the writing prompts they've sent me, because she wanted me to look over it. Every one of the writing prompts they've sent me has been kind of like, I've had issues with the framing. This one was talking about why has the United States been militarily ineffective from 1945 till the present day. Like, this is a military writing prompt, and I'm like, I'm not sure I would make that claim entirely.
I would, but again, it depends on what exactly you're referring to. If we're talking about like from a global hegemony standpoint, we've done an excellent job for the most part.
Yeah, there's a stated objective problem, I think, in that you can identify military successes on a operational and tactical level that don't translate into winning wars, and that's what they were talking about.
I mean, we don't win wars. I mean, a bunch of farmers kicked our ass in Southeast Asia, so.
Yes. But they didn't win battles to do it, I think was the point that has to be made. Like there's a loss
we won war. Exactly.
Yes, there's a loss of translation from that level of the tactical and operational to the strategic. That just doesn't.
Well, you end up with stupid people like Wick because they think about strikes. They don't think about the war. So like the U.S. did very well in all of its strikes in Vietnam. Like, I mean, as far as shit goes, we cleared shit out. We put Agent Orange on fucking millions of people. We fucked everyone up. We ruined so many lives. Our bombings were excellent. But the war, we got our asses handed to us.
Yes. And there's a gap. There's like it's hard to describe because it's a gap between the political, like what we want to do and what we say we're doing and what we end up accomplishing, and the tool for the job isn't the right tool.
Well, it's a lot of it's due to, we have this fantasy of what war is, being a few guys around a map moving chess pieces with a stick and going, oh, we moved there. Excellent. And that being like, oh, we won the battle, therefore the war, which is how this is always portrayed. It's in future wars, past wars, it's always this thing. Even Game of Thrones did this, where it's like, oh, we moved troops here. Excellent. We have now. And then it's either success or failure. Not realizing, like, you're talking about a decade-long thing very often, or you're talking about things that last decades afterwards that end up becoming like actually a bigger problem, to be frank. Just, it's very dumb not understanding that there's more than just, World War II, which is supposedly the war we basically base all of our wars off of mentally.
Yes, and this idea of what comes afterwards isn't talked about a lot.
No, it is not.
And
that's for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things like I don't know where this thing in Yemen ends, and it doesn't seem like it ends in a good place.
Oh, it doesn't end. It's Afghanistan take two.
Yeah, like here's what I thought, at least, that it would have been much more efficacious to sit a couple of our guided missile destroyers in the Red Sea, shoot down the Yemeni weapons for a couple months, and they'll get bored and do something else. Because if they don't get what they want, then they're going to do something different. If we give them what they want, they're going to keep doing this. So it guarantees that the situation continues. And Biden said as much, right? He said, are these strikes effective? No.
No. And he knows it. And our military knows it. And there's a lot of drives there. It's not as simple as, a lot of people right now are having that, oh, it's the military industrial complex purely. It's just, they just want to sell bombs. It's like, I mean, that pressure's there, obviously, but it's not that. There's the culture of war amongst these people and what it means to be engaged that way. They don't really have we don't have a diplomatic corps in this country. It's not a thing that exists meaningfully.
Not at least since the 90s. No.
I would say I would say it kind of ended with the horrifying shit around Saddam's nuclear program or gas program or illegal weapons, because we had, you know, UN reps, we had our scientists, we had people there who went in and like tried to do like, he doesn't have anything, we couldn't find any, like we had some level of that playing at it, but still something. We just don't even try anymore. Like there's literally not even a, hey, we're sending an attaché. I don't even know if that's been done in 20 years.
In Yemen, no. In Iraq,
or in Iraq, I think they did it literally 20 years ago. And I mean, since then, we've bombed countries, we've sent troops into countries, we've supported wars, and at no point have we like said, hey, we're going to send and help, you know, broker a peace talk. For Christ's sakes, we did it with Kuwait, and we helped Saudi Arabia get Kuwait and Saddam in the goddamn room in Jordan. Like, but we don't do that anymore. We don't care.
Yeah, it has.
It's just not there.
It has, and in fairness, it's been observed by people in the military that the answer has become turning to the military before it's appropriate. And this was being observed 10, 12 years ago too. There's a problem that they don't really have a voice in policy debates. So the people who are probably best equipped to say, no, this is a bad idea, aren't the ones who are doing it, because they have to worry about their careers and that they have to be apolitical. Like, it's stressed really early on for our military officers that you can't get involved overtly in politics. Like, you can go vote, but that's about it.
Yep.
And like that's a problem, because
it makes them pretend like what they do isn't political when it's like, I mean, everything's political, but two, maybe they're the most political thing that there is.
Well, it's especially ironic because you're going to go and suppose you make it to the rank of major or lieutenant commander. You're going to do that master's program, and going to teach you Clausewitz and Yemeni. And Clausewitz is going to have an entire chapter about how warfare is political and how it relates to the state and how important that is. Like, and then you can't talk about it.
Nope, you can't at all.
So yeah, it's a huge problem, and it's especially a huge problem because nothing good. The Houthis are not going to do anything good for the people of Yemen. We're not going to do anything good for the people of Yemen.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that necessarily, but I'm gonna ask the same question I always ask, which is, how do you know? Now I know there's an ideological piece in there, but it's been a decade they've been in charge during what is one of the most brutal and genuinely war crimey sieges that has taken place in modern history.
Sure,
so,
but they also haven't done anything so far.
What could they have done? It's the same thing as like people who shit on Cuba during the U.S. embargoes when we wouldn't allow anything. It's like, boy, look at how shitty it is there. Look at how much they have to. It's like they haven't done it. It's like, what the fuck do you expect them to do? Like, they're literally not allowed to export or import, have an economy. Occasionally, Saudi Arabia just bombs parts of the country. It's the same thing like with Gaza. It's like, yes, I know Hamas hasn't done anything, and I know they've not chosen anyone else, but what other option has there been at any point in the last decade?
Well, for Yemen, or for at least the Houthis, let's grant from 2014, the nominal start of the civil war, to 2021. Let's grant they didn't have any other options. We
only stopped bombarding them about a year and a half ago.
Right.
Like keeping them locked in with Saudi Arabia and others.
Saudi Arabia, it was. We took them off.
We helped them.
We gave them weapons, but we took them off the terrorist watch
list.
We
gave them weapons.
In an attempt, though, to let
we gave them a satellite. We pushed other sanctions across everything, across multiple parties. Like, we did a lot of shit. We were absolutely involved in that siege.
Yeah, but like, we take them off the terrorist watch list so we can put aid into Yemen and make that legal. And they did this, and we put them back on the terrorist watch list. Like, that was a choice. That was ultimately the Houthis' choice that they have to be accountable for.
What did they do?
Mm-hmm. They launched weapons at ships moving into the Red Sea.
Are those our ships?
Are those our ships? No, but that doesn't matter.
No. What? I'm going to ask why not.
because the United States Navy, one of its mission priorities is freedom of navigation.
Right. So we've decided we own the waters, right? That's what that means. That means we own the waters.
Well, no, that's not what that means.
But we have sovereignty over them.
We protect your ability to use the waters. That's a different thing.
I mean, that's what sovereignty is.
It's still
we protect the ability to exploit the oceans as if it was land.
Yes, but it's not that we're owning it. It's not like we decided we own international waters. We're saying everyone's ships.
How do we have a right inside of what is genuinely not our land, or even on the same hemisphere or any hemisphere as us, really? How do we have the ability to go, oh, an attack happened there, when there are literal attacks happening all the fucking time on all kinds of ships all over the goddamn world? But this is the one. This one, where, by the way, no one died. Like, as far as I'm aware, this wasn't like they killed like 150 guys or blew up 2 ships. They fired rockets. Some shit sort of got damaged. But we decided this is now why they're back on the terrorist watch list, and we've got to bombard them.
Sure, because
why?
This has caused commercial shipping to stop moving through the Red Sea, or some commercial shipping. Specifically, any commercial shipping that isn't Russian or Iranian.
Right.
That's another component.
Why does that justify what we did?
Why? Because, like I said, the United States Navy says its mission is to...
No, I understand that its mission is this, but how is that justifiable as a thing that we get to claim the police of the ocean and choose when and where? And again, leaving others, there's right now, go across the Cape, go across the Horn of Africa, go anywhere kind of around Africa, there's pirates. Go in Southeast Asia, there's pirates. Some really horrifying shit that happens too, by the way, there. We don't give a shit about any of that, right? So why is this place worthy of us then immediately bombing a fuck ton of people?
It's the geography, right? It's the Red Sea.
Again, I understand the mission we're on.
No, but it's that specific choke point. You're asking me the question. It's that specific choke point that makes us decide to do it. Like whether or not...
I'm not asking why we did it. I know why we did it, because we're trying to support our global hegemony inside of the global capitalist system and the imperial structure that exists. Now, the Houthis, I know, dickheads, fuck them, assholes across the board, don't give a shit. But why do we get to bomb them? Why do we get to claim this as the reason, is my question. Because I understand we do claim it. Trust me, I know the justifications.
Sure, but that's basically a case of because we judge the value of doing that to be more efficacious than not. It's a calculus, right?
Right, so we're now doing the siege ourselves against Yemen after a year break, sort of, not really, for the hundreds of thousands that we helped starve to death, and which wasn't justified with Saudi Arabia, which we supported in a multitude of ways. Aside from weapons, satellite imagery, intel, whole bunch of shit, sanctions, it was wild. But now we get to just go, cool, now we're going to bomb, and now they're worthy of giving a shit about? Like, did they blow up a ship? Like, maybe I missed it. Did they fire a missile at a ship that actually blew it up and killed everyone on board?
No, that's pretty rare.
No, did they kill someone?
As far as I'm aware, no one's been injured, no.
So they hurt ships. Did they do a lot of damage? Did the ship sink?
No,
it didn't sink either.
But
it didn't sink either.
I get what you're saying. You're talking about an absolute moral point, but what we're...
Oh, no, I'm asking, like, where's the line then? Because this is disrupting commerce is the fucking reason we did it.
Yes,
flatly disrupting commerce. So, what recourse do the people of Yemen have to get the world to pay attention to them?
I'm not sure.
It's a real question.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's an answer to that
I go
question.
very well with them. I go with the MLK line, which I think is going to be true for eternity. Riots are the voices of the unheard, which I love as a thing.
This is
people
really
who have
the Yemeni people rioting. This is a very specific group that has control over an area.
Sure. Well, they're empowered by the people beneath them. because of the conditions of the situation that they're in. The same way that Hamas is supported by the people of Palestine. It's not that they support everything that they do. It's that these are the only people protecting us. They're the same way that the Israeli people are looking at the Israeli government. This is my protection. The world is going to try to kill me. They're actively, how many of your children do you want to watch starve to death? And before you go, fuck, I'll listen to these guys. Like, it's a real question, because we did that to them. Hundreds of thousands we did this to. So they probably support the Houthis. I mean, I can't imagine that most people wouldn't, given that situation. So, like, what anyone in power, whoever the fuck it is, what is the thing they can do? Because Saudi Arabia is still doing tons of shit to them. It's awful what's happening in Yemen. So if we killed every Houthi, just like if we killed everyone in Hamas or we removed the Israeli government, all these things, it's not like those things exist in a vacuum. The material conditions of the situation create the space for those specific types and that specific production of a personality. So when we sit there and we talk about fuck the Houthis, sure, but that's pointless. Instead, my question would be, if we could magically remove them, what would, one, prevent exactly the same thing from springing back up? Because I can't imagine that there's anything that would stop it. But two, what would you have happen? How could we change that? What is the way to give the people of Yemen a voice other than throwing rocks at cars or rockets towards ships? Again, didn't sink a ship. Damaged,
Yeah.
I think from my memory, they damaged a couple. And it's like light damage. One of them has a hole in like a high part, like above the water, but it's already fixed. But other ships just don't want to deal with it. So they are just going the longer route, which, by the way, they can totally still get there. It's just going to be an extra day or two, which is funny to me that's what it takes for us to. It's a couple days.
Yeah, it's not. It's enough to disrupt. It's enough to disrupt food shipments to other countries. Like that's a thing that's going to happen. Particularly because the route, at least from like ports in France and Italy, food goes out down to Asia and Africa through the Red Sea. So it's enough to disrupt food shipments to other countries.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. But like the geography of it, though, is why we're going to be there, and it's why that situation isn't acceptable. And
right, but again, so what do you want from the Yemeni people?
What do I want from them? I would like the Yemeni people to be free of the Houthis, the Al Qaeda group, and their government to be perfectly.
I agree. How do we do that?
I don't think that's our job. I don't think we can do that. We haven't.
Well, we can kill them. So I mean, I would assume
we haven't
freeing
been
them
successful in being. We haven't been successful in killing the Houthis, and since the 90s.
No, the people. We've been killing people.
Sure,
we kill people.
Sure, but the people are like the people would benefit from being able to. They'll determine their own government, wouldn't they? Not necessarily one imposed by Saudi Arabia.
No disagreement. No disagreement there. How do we enable that?
I don't think we can.
So then we're in a really amazing moral position where our reaction we justify completely, but we have absolutely no onus or ability to change it. So there's a great Western, and I always use it. Bill Hicks is the one who came up with it. We do this with a lot of countries, the Americans. So the bad guy's got the gun in the Western. And he's got it and he throws it out. He says, "Hey kid, pick it up." And the kid goes, I don't want to pick up the gun. I don't. Pick up the fucking gun. I really don't. And he aims, pick up the fucking gun. Kid picks up the gun, kills him. That situation, kind of exactly what we're doing. We have no ability to fix the situation for the Yemeni people who are putting the Houthis in the position of power that they're in, and the material conditions around them that are causing this groundswell of support for what's happening. And the anger that we're sensing, the reason people are like cheering for the Houthis is because how many photos have you seen of Yemeni children? I'm going to ask how many. If you haven't, you should, because at some point you can't root against those who are being starved to death and say accept it, because that's what we'd be doing. And so anything they do, any response, the Houthis doing it in power, for sure. Fuck them for doing that. But what other paths are we giving them? What other options are there? There's none. It's to be killed. They exist now as the sort of surplus victim of American hegemony. So like a lot of countries, to be frank.
Sure. The only thing I think we can do is reopen the Red Sea. And that does nothing for the people of Yemen. Right?
No.
It does nothing
at all. In
fact,
it does a lot bad for them. Because this is the beauty of supply lines, especially in that area, is it completely fucks it completely fucks the countries right in that area, which by and large are the oppressors of Yemen. So if Saudi Arabia, for example, suddenly didn't have the ability to get a whole bunch of food, they don't have a lot of farms. Okay.
Right.
Are they going to be focused on what? Still killing Yemeni? Or are they going to be dealing with internal issues? They're going to be dealing with internal issues. That's how that works.
Well, they're going to deal with internal issues one way or the other. Like, Saudi Arabia is a country of sufficient military power.
Saudi Arabia doesn't have food? If they don't have food being shipped to them, they're fucked.
Sure, but they can still bomb you another country through a famine. And Saudi Arabia does have very sufficient.
I'm not sure that's true.
Very significant internal issues. Like Saudi Arabia is, and we've talked about this here before with the commander. Saudi Arabia is a ticking time bomb in terms of.
I agree. And it would be almost like if you were to disrupt supply lines and cause significant unrest inside of the country, it might almost help push that over the edge.
Yeah, but I don't think that helps Yemen. Like, an unstable country is not necessarily...
I'm not saying it necessarily helps Yemen, but I'm also saying what we're doing doesn't help them either. So helping Yemen, we've already decided, isn't the point.
Yes, I'm not sure there's a better outcome there, because a unstable Saudi Arabia isn't necessarily a Saudi Arabia that doesn't become an expansionist power that attacks the smaller countries around it, right? One of which is Yemen. Like,
sure. Well, and then we start getting into talking about, is a rebellion ever appropriate?
If it was just a rebellion, like, that's my problem.
You can talk about, for example, the United States. Why did we form the United States? A lot of fun stories, but I can tell you now,
it's a question of economics, right? The people who ultimately formed the United States are a merchant class. They wanted to be able to control their economic fate.
Yes, I think worse than that. I think that's still a broad thing. George Washington and other people who helped sort of win this were the gentry class, the well-off. They actually borrowed a lot from wealthy other people in order to fund this. And so the first thing they did is they set out with expansionist tendencies in order to kill Native Americans, to take their land, to pay that back. So our rebellion was very much not in taxes or really any sort of even self sort of determination, just the fact that they wanted to have power and control over their own space and become rich themselves instead of being beholden to a crown for it. There's a very specific economic driver. So I would ask, are they justified then in all the people they killed, all the shipping lines they destroyed, and all the people they murdered along the way, including women and children?
No, I don't think that's justified.
I would agree they're not justified, but then at what point is anyone? Is John Brown justified in what he did? I believe absolutely yes. He murdered slaveholders. He murdered the power structure around it. He helped actually really start the end of slavery, I believe, his actions. John Brown's a hero, but
yes,
other people call him a terrorist. So where do we land?
It's entirely possible, for my answer, it's entirely possible it is both.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think he's a good terrorist.
But again, John Brown, though, isn't necessarily, Kansas aside, Bleeding Kansas aside, and his actions there, even in Bleeding Kansas, he shows a level of restraint about who he attacks specifically.
Sure. So is that
he's attacking a property holder, in particular, men who hold slaves.
Yes, he was very good about it. These Houthis who attacked these ships, killed who again? Just asking.
Well, in the case of attacking the ships, no one, but that's not true of the Houthis generally.
But this is the attack we're doing, right? This is the thing we're doing.
Yes.
So Um, that would be my question.
Who have they
Like,
killed? Have they killed anyone in the shipping
is a
lanes?
child
No.
who throws rocks, is a child in Palestine who throws rocks that hits an Israeli soldier worthy of being shot?
Absolutely not.
I would agree. So what's the difference?
What's the difference between the child who throws rocks and the Houthi?
Someone who throws and launches a shit rocket that bounces off a ship and damages it slightly.
The child is protesting the soldier. The rocket is designed to disrupt the trade. The difference ultimately is what we make it, right? I'm not denying that.
Right.
But like I guess my question to you is, what would you have done instead?
I would not be attacking Yemen.
Neither would I. Like I said,
yeah, and I think allowing it to be as it is, I think, is the way to go.
I don't see, because like I tried to explain the other day on Sunday's channel, is this empowers Iran, and this empowers the Houthis to take over the rest of Yemen, which is not good for, well, the children of Yemen who are get drafted to fight. It's not good for the women that they take and abuse.
Correct. I mean, there's no good. But again, my point, just to pull back into it, is what we're doing is encouraging the very same material conditions that produced the Houthis in the first place,
right?
Which we are aware of. There is zero chance the people doing this. And Biden has even said out loud, as you said, Biden said out loud, the airstrikes aren't effective. Not the point. It's like, you motherfucker. They absolutely are having the exact conversation of saying, what we need to do is we need to, one, divert from Israel. That's 100% part of their conversation. We need to divert people's eyes from what's happening in Palestine. We need to have the secondary thing. Two, we need to create a secondary structure that can actually rival Israel in the area. As much as everyone may say otherwise, I don't think actually there's a lot of power in a lot of the militaries in the Middle East, the way that we talk about them very often. Most of their militaries are really kind of shit. We do have a very good military, but I think as we learned, what we learned on October 7th is that Israel is a paper tiger. And I think most of these countries are not drastically different than that. So what we're doing is creating a new paper tiger that can be a threat that we can then pop up Israel against. And we can have our two sides Cold War happy day in the Middle East without necessarily having fully created them outright. So by creating these two power structures and encouraging them, we're making the Middle East the bifurcated mess that we did very well with in the 90s, to be frank.
I don't think it works like that, though, because...
Oh, it does. Sure. Why not?
Because Israel, again, is not... Like there's also very clearly signs of strains between the White House and Israel. Like they're doing everything they can short of abandoning Israel to try to make them stop.
So they say, or hint at. They don't even really say that. But again, the push that's happening and the thing we need is we need Europe to back Israel, which Germany is more than happy to do, and a series of other countries. It's wild to me how rabidly they're backing Israel in all of this. But they can't do it in a vacuum to edges, because Iraq and Afghanistan are out of the picture. No one really gives a shit about them anymore. They don't exist in any significant structure. But Saudi Arabia and Israel, which is the weirdest sentence I think I've said in a while, versus Iran, Houthis, and a handful of others, Oman, sort of, and it starts getting dicey. Just a theory, yeah, but it's just what the conditions look like on the ground to me.
It's not a theory that I can... It's not a theory that I can substantiate, right?
No, of course not.
Because there's other factors that have gone into this that have been observed too. Like there's a possibility that Iran, we know actually Iran is the one, because the Houthis don't have the targeting capabilities to hit these ships. Iran is giving them the data, and that's how they know which ships to hit. And another point that was noticed is Russian ships.
It hits. Again, the euphemisms for things have always gotten fucked up, but here they're getting really bad. Literally, people are certain that the Houthis have blown up ships, and it's like, look, this is like when Israel says they're sending rockets over and at Israel, and I'm like, I've seen that shit. Like, it's firecracker level stuff that they're sending over most of the days, and you're sending strike missiles. So like these words, we've lost a lot of meaning. You and I have talked about that though too. Like these words have started to change. I hate this shit. I hate this shit, man.
The problem I have is a matter of technicality. You remember when the Ukrainians sunk the Russian cruiser Moskva? Back, so like I don't know if you remember how very surprised I was that happened. Like, didn't necessarily believe it happened, right?
I think I was. I think a lot of us were,
like, because it's
speaking of paper tigers. Holy shit, Russia!
Right, but like as far as like anti-ship missiles go, so anti-ship missiles aren't designed really to sink ships. What they're designed to do is hit a ship and take it out of commission, get a mission kill on a ship. So that's really
disable it, yeah.
Right. So like I was like, well, we hit the ship with 2 missiles. Like, okay, it's a 12,000 ton cruiser, it should be fine. And they're like, oh yeah, the ship sank. Like, what? Why did that happen? How did that happen? You have to be breathtakingly incompetent on the side of Russia for that to happen. Like, so like, yeah, I get that. I get the distinction, but like, a anti-ship missile that hits your ship and takes it out of commission for a while is doing the job it's intended to do. Is ultimately the problem I have. So that's why the term strike generally tends to apply.
All of the ships, as far as I know, that were attacked are already back in service.
I haven't checked on the shipping companies' turnaround times for repairs, but I think the big thing is that the companies that aren't going through the Red Sea anymore are probably doing so because their insurance companies are threatening to raise rates. Not to the intent to take out the ships. And ultimately, the problem is like I said, what I would have had us do is sit there and knock their missiles down, and eventually they decide to go do something else for a while, and the problem would be solved. There's a big problem where a whole bunch of unrelated people, particularly politicians, are now calling for us to do these strikes, and that's always a problem. I don't feel like I can substantiate a coordinated let's take eyes off of Israel, because it hasn't necessarily worked.
No, I'm not saying, again, I'm saying there's a million things. I'm not saying any one of these reasons, but the push underneath it is to create and foster a singular secondary entity in the space, because there isn't one. Israel doesn't really have a bad guy right now. And it's one of the things that's making a lot of their conversations when they're screaming about how everyone's, the barbarians are at the gates, we're going to get holocausted, we're going to be murdered. And it's like, look, we get Hamas and the shit, but who's going to fucking do that to you? Like, you and Saudi Arabia are cool. Like, what's happening here? And
yeah, Israel, like, Israel overplayed their hand this time too, in a very big way. I was like I'm sure you saw all the crap they were pulling in the last couple months, like when their UN ambassador delegation gets in the middle of the floor of the UN because they said stop blowing up Gaza, and they threw on yellow stars, like over the top, and everyone's like, seriously? So yeah, Israel overplayed its hand. And the other, but they just made a bunch of ground this week too. They have a new thing to rally around. They're objecting to the proposed peace plan. They're objecting heavily to a 2-state solution again, which has always been a fucking joke, right? The 2-state solution was always ridiculous because it wasn't actually a state for Palestine.
No, it was insane from the beginning.
Yeah,
as a concept.
I've been working on talking about a video about Camp David and the Talba 2001 Talba negotiations, right? And like I have to rewrite the whole fucking script now because Netanyahu is like, yeah, we're never going to give Palestine a state. I'm like, well, I was being entirely too generous to the Israeli government in my script. I have to go fix that now. So I got to redo the whole damn thing. But like Israel.
But again, this is the other half of this is, I know ships are going around. There are still ships going through the Red Sea, like a ton of them, and big flammable ones, to be perfectly frank. So it's kind of like
Russian flagged tankers. That's what I.
Is it only Russian flags that are going through at this point? Because I saw other ones. So there's not a lot of them. Like the American flag thing isn't a thing that we do anyway. Marshall Islands tends to be people offshore. They're fucking. It's the tax shit around ships is fucking insane based on flag alone. I just have so many questions about this.
That's why the Isn't China still going through? So far, but that's because Iran doesn't want to fuck with China. Sorry, I'm answering chat too. Yeah, that's because Iran doesn't want to fuck with China. Um, and the
Iran doesn't want to fuck with their relationship with China for sure.
Yes, there is China is kind of a different story in how they do hegemony and how they attempt hegemony. They like to get you with loans, and they will which they use to secure favorable terms for the usage of the thing they helped pay for. And they're also the only reliable partner that Iran is going to get for investment. So, and that's mostly because Trump was especially stupid. Like, we probably could have avoided that entire situation with Yemen in the first place. Iran wouldn't be willing to help the Houthis do this if they had Trump had not reneged on the nuclear deal. Also, Trump did a number on our ability to be a honest broker with the Palestinians. Not that we ever were a good one, but now it's pretty clear that we're not going to be an honest broker for them when he decided to recognize Israel's claim to Jerusalem.
Right, but let's also be very fair. The siege and the attacks from the KSA started under Obama, and he didn't do anything to stop it, and also began support then. Trump continued a lot of that. That was he's a son of a bitch too in this. This one he doesn't get away with.
No, absolutely. We have had a very bad set of policies for the whole region, the whole North African and Middle Eastern region. Libya, Syria, Lebanon. Although recently we're not. Israel's more at fault for Lebanon than we are the last couple decades. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Afghanistan, probably Pakistan. That's looking a little dicey too. Iran and Pakistan nearly started a war the last couple days. That was fun.
Well, again, so like when we talk about Yemen and the things we've done and what's happened, what we did and how we supported Saudi Arabia in that, I find just we don't get to claim, oh yeah, it was Saudi Arabia. We just gave a little bit of support when we fueled their jets and bombers mid-air with our we sent our guys in. Like we helped that happen intimately. Just intimately. We gave them bombing targets specifically. We didn't just provide them with satellites. We gave them the targets. Like
I didn't say it was a little bit of support. No, I didn't try to minimize it.
Ours too. I consider it the U.S.'s folly as much as KSA. KSA is almost I don't want to say a pawn in it, but they may have initiated it, but they don't have a military to speak of. There's that story that came out because we gave them just all of the latest shit in the world because.
I'm really
but the reality is in Saudi. Sorry, go ahead.
Of a narrative that takes away the agency of other countries, right? Like, do we induce?
They started it, but again,
sure, but they kind of make their own decisions too.
Well, no, I don't know if that's. I don't think we make necessary. I don't believe in decisions like that either. So maybe I have a complete. To me, it's pressures, and it's pressures in sort of every way. The sort of same way that we supported KSA. We didn't really have a choice because of the nature of our relationship with them and the way we wanted that to continue. The pressures are the pressures, and vice versa. So it's not necessarily taking away anyone's. Agency. I don't even know how much agency people have in the first place in these fucking things. Like, I can't imagine KSA was stupid enough to really think that they could take on Yemen. Like, they wanted a siege? Did they think they could actually win? There's a story, because we gave them a ton of fucking everything, armaments and fucking Humvees and crazy shit. There's a story of the APC that we gave to them. And because in Saudi Arabia, a lot of the military isn't really military, but more like rich kids who are like it's part of the honor guard there, and it's all that kind of thing. So they've never been in battle. It's not how KSA really works.
It's also a ship police force, but that's a different story.
not disagreeing with that either. But the story goes that this APC with like a bunch of these really well armed, highly trained guys showed up with this fucking high end US APC and just got fucking wrecked by a handful of these dudes who like they bombed it from underneath an IED, and then they basically cooked the guys alive with fire, and then the guys who got it, like they just killed everybody, and it was like 3 dudes. It's just they don't know how to fight, and I'm sure I can't imagine KSA really thought they would win that. It had to be a goal, just a long standoff, right?
Oh, yeah. What's so?
No, I mean, I know speculation. We have no idea,
No,
but I can't.
but
They can't have a thought that they would win
without knowing what the internal ideas of the KSA were. I can see a problem. I was having this conversation the other day with someone about the Air Force. There is a somehow reoccurring concept to certain service branches that they alone can do the job. So the United States Air Force, for example, for the longest time had this concept like we don't need the other branches. We have bombers. The bombers always get through, and the bombers will win the war. We keep making that mistake on a fundamental level for some reason. So like it's entirely possible that they made the wrong assumption that has happened multiple times in the past, that we have air power will do the job. Israel makes the same assumption. That's why that's why they got that's why they're getting their shit kicked in northern Gaza right now, is because they thought that the air campaign was going to do something. And they tried to tell us that the air campaign was going to do something, and all it did was kill 25,000 Gazans. So I mean,
but this is basically what happened in Yemen too. The goal, as far as I remember, from when Saudi Arabia and the coalition began their attacks, was to reinstate Hadi, who had been basically run out by the Houthis, who they had, the Saudis had sent in troops before to kill protesters and people. Like, this has been a brutal regime that has been really in power, the same way that, Gaza and the West Bank aren't really in control of their own destinies in any capacity, and the people who live there aren't. The people in Yemen, up until the Houthis took over, were really under the thumb of the KSA and the coalition. So, like, again, what in the fuck? This is why, like, every time we start getting more and more immersed in it, and every time we touch it again, it's like a ball of tar. We just are stuck, and we get stuck again. We finally find a way to pull ourselves out. We just touch it again, grab a hold, and we're stuck all over again. You never get out. You never get out.
Well, for what it's worth, sorry, things are getting banged downstairs. I don't know why. I suspect that Biden is going to limit how we get involved because it's an election year. Which might be a saving grace for the regular civilians of Yemen. I don't know. Like, again,
we're going to keep bombing the fuck out of Yemen. We're going to do these kinds of airstrikes, mark my words, every couple weeks for the next forever. Like, this is a long time thing. We can't stop.
Well, now we can't because we started. So
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, which is where what you can do at that point is pick some random thing, blow it up, declare victory, and go home. That's all. That's the only recourse he really has is practical.
It's the only one the reality of the pressures and the conditions that we're in put him in that spot. It's the fun part, though, about being in charge is he actually can things could be shifting. It would be sort of overturning a table of sorts and terrifying, but it would be shifting.
Hey, PDX, you got bored of Sunday? I don't know what he's doing today. His stream title is weird, and I didn't look at it. Sorry.
He was watching some Andrew Yang fucking jerk off weirdo. Well, like then. the worst of the worst of the Yang gang, and the guy. This is how you know it's a great. Like, not that you need to see it, but like, he's a archetype of a human. Destiny, you and I are a lot alike. We're both too smart and too brilliant, like that kind of shit.
Oh God, yeah. In that case, then Sunday should just turn around and play Lethal Company again. That was hilarious.
That was fun. It was fun. We're gonna try to make it maybe a regular thing, which would be good.
Maybe I'll join you guys eventually. I can't possibly be any worse.
But it comes down to, and this is why. So we had this place, lefties, and this is the thing. I'm trying to find where a lot of this comes from. There's this lefty discourse. Hasan backing the Houthis. Fuck him. He's fucking Houthis are assholes. And then there's the other side, which is like, hey, fuck the Houthis flatly. So my question would be like, why? What is this thing that's happening where, like we're cheering for teams, which is the this is the reactionary
that's exactly what
take.
I was about to say. Like Wick and on one team and Hasan on the other type crap. Not that anyone pays attention to Wick, but
not a single goddamn person on the left says, can we talk about the material conditions of the situation? And I'm just waiting for it, and I'm still nobody of any note is like, hey, actually, we need to talk about what's happening here, because there is. And again, it's not about justifying, because this is this shitty morality we live inside of, is understanding why the Houthis are where they're at. The reason Al-Qaeda gained the power they did, and the reason they were put in the position they did, is pretty particular. And it's not like wild, and it doesn't take us, it's not, we don't need a scientific study to start to talk about what caused some shit.
No.
And you could,
no one wants to talk about that for a very specific reason, because no one's going to come up with an answer. Suppose you have Hasan, and Hasan turns around and says, we shouldn't bomb the Houthis, it's bad. They're freedom fighters, are trying to stop a genocide, blah, 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 blah. That's an answer to people, because they can take that, they can stick it in their hat and call it macaroni. Take a Wick. A Wick goes, we should bomb the Houthis because they're terrorists and slavers, and he makes a really unfortunate reference to Sherman the other day. That's an answer. You can take that and stick it in your hat and macaroni.
yes.
You and I can talk about material conditions till the cows come home, but let's suppose that tomorrow we elect you president.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure you can get off the dragon. And like we say that, and we have that discussion, and it's fucking depressing.
Well, I mean, and this is where we start talking about what is the material conditions that can be shifted in minor ways. It's my joke I always tell is like, if Jeff Bezos tomorrow made Amazon a commune, they wouldn't let him do that. Like, he'd be committed, they'd find someone else in his spot, and he'd be fucking out. So what are the things you can do if you happen to find yourself in a position of power, or in where we're at, which is minor non-positions of non-power, but still, some level of democratic or voice or whatever we have? What can you do? And again, it's much of the same thing. It's look around what you're doing and what you're touching into, and what are you encouraging and how you do it. Look for the things that are, BDS is a very simple way, by the way, to support and do the right thing on a lot of that in a basic way. But if I was president tomorrow, it would be starting to shift how trade happens, where incentive structures are, and how we work as a thing. And it's not massive. You don't, knock everything down. That's how you get shot and someone else comes in who's much more milquetoast. You go smart. You build smart. You change light things enough to move things and shift people's actual material conditions. If tomorrow someone came in and said, I can fix everything, we're done with the Houthis. Oh, we're done with the Israeli leadership is out. Oh, the Hamas is out. That vacuum doesn't go away.
No. And
for any of those. So there's no good guys. This is not a good guy, bad guy thing. These are people in desperate situations. I believe this is true, by the way, of the Israeli people for much different reasons. I believe a lot of these people are desperately terrified. And
yes,
that's where they're at.
They're absolutely terrified. Like I've had conversations. I more conversations with Israelis than I've been able to have elsewhere because of, the way Israel's been conducting things, but they're absolutely terrified.
Oh yeah, beyond words. It's incredible. And the Palestinian people, terrified, traumatized too. So we have these massive gouges of generational trauma, upon generational trauma, upon generational trauma, that are almost not really based in anything now. Or, there's stories. Stories are wonderful. But what allows them and what encourages these narratives is the material realities of these people. They're besieged because of how trade is done. They're besieged because of partnerships in the region. They're besieged because to our support for Israel and our bombing of religious sites, because that's what he said. And it's a really simple, that's how this works. They tend to be very honest to the stuff they're angry with. What causes those things? What allows them? And can we shift it even slightly?
You're fine, Bubba. Sorry, dog. No, yeah, I mean, that's also like, that's the message I feel like that has to come across, though, is ultimately, like, there's not going to be instant solutions. There's not going to be someone who comes in and saves the day, right? Hey, Jandrix. Because there's not going to be something that instantly fixes it. And, like, we expect that, it feels like. Like, that's what gives Hasan.
Oh, yes.
That's what gives Hasan his staying power, is that he always has something to rail against, right? Because no one is going to be able to fulfill the expectation that we have that one day the great leftist will come and all oppression will end. That it's a process that's going to take us generations, at best, if it ever even happens. The whole thing is like, the framing of the conversation is what we have to get at, because like, not to quote, not to get overly involved in that particular mud pile, but Brianna Wu's whole thing about infinite leftism and trying to make a joke of it is like, no, that's what it's going to have to be. It's not going to be a single moment. It's going to be, a process over time. It has to be infinite leftism, because we always have to be working towards the next thing.
It is one of the great mistakes that the left made in general, and that's why I don't like using the term the left, is it turned process into a goal. And it's a line that I love from, it's an anti-Oedipus, but it comes from Tropic of Cancer. You've turned love, which is the problem with love now is we've turned it into a goal. It's meant to be a process. It's meant to end and begin again. It's meant to be constant. It's meant to be shifting. It's meant to be starting and breaking. It's not meant to be a thing. And it's a great line. And I think in general, this tends to be where a lot of us sort of run awry when we start thinking of the goal of the thing. What does it need to be? When you start, it has to be this shape. We have to have this structure. We need to get to this place in order for it to be true leftism. We're fortunate in the fact that a lot of that hasn't touched the word revolutionary, although it does get a tech bro sort of tinge to it. It's why I tend to use the words reactionary for people instead of talking about left and right, because, and I think Hasan has a lot of good takes. From what I've seen, he's not wildly shitty. He's got a few that are probably wild, but fuck, no one's perfect. Then we start talking about his intention, though. And a lot of it is just towards the structure as it is and not shifting that, not changing that. There's an investment in the structure as it is, not consciously. That's not a thing that exists. And it's just silly to start, because he has money. Because no, we're all there. Even people who don't have money can be just as invested in that structure because it gives them identity. It gives them their place in it.
Identity and stability. Can I bother you to let me take this dog out? It'll be 5 minutes and I'll be back. He's standing on my shoulder because he wants to go potty. I apologize.
Sure, I can't see your chat, so I have no idea what's going on.
I will. It's an unattainable ideal. Yeah. If you want to bring them up, if you can, I will be swift about it.
All right. Let's see. This would be two guys talking history. In theory, we're live. Oh, yeah, we're live. Excellent. That is you. Oh, and there I am. Excellent. Hello, chat. How are you doing? We got 8 hole watchers. Look at that stuff. That's great. Jandrix, it's an unattainable ideal, but people make the mistake of thinking it can be fully realized instead of continually being worked toward. But that's the thing, is the toward. one of the great challenges, it's one of the great tragedies of the 20th century, Zizek says, and I really like the line, is the failure of Russia. Because even if I don't think it was a communist state at all, but the failure of it set us back because the world looks at it as a communist state because it started with those ideals. It'd be hard to say Trotsky and Lenin and even Stalin in the early days weren't in that space. And I think one of the things we run into is when we look at the history of it, we assume that, okay, they built, and they towards a goal. What happened is they had ideas and they had goals and the process in mind towards a thing, but that thing doesn't exist. The thing is a lie. This is the story we tell. This is how we get into the place of thinking a great man will come save us, or that we live in strange times or unusual times, whatever narrative we can tell ourselves. And this is what they did. The poor workers who actually took over, who really dealt with maybe the most brutal part of the post-revolutionary famine, but found a way to persevere. The same in China, I would say. The workers who made their way through towards this idea, the people at the top had this goal, and that shape was the only thing that they cared about. And they all had different shapes, and they all fought and cooed each other, murdered each other, disappeared each other, all that. But just having that direction, that fucks us, because you don't know where you're standing or where you're going. There's this great piece I was reading recently, because I do it a lot. I was having an argument with someone about Nietzsche, and I went and read The Gay Science because I hadn't in some time. And I want to sort of mention, because people have asked when I say I don't believe in cause and effect, because I don't. People are, how the fuck does that work? And it's like, God damn it, people. But it's along the lines of this. We call it explanation, but description is what distinguishes us from older stages of knowledge and science. We are better at describing. We explain just as little as all our predecessors. We've uncovered a diverse succession where the naive man and investigator of older cultures saw only two things, cause and effect, as they said. We've perfected the picture of becoming, but haven't gotten behind the picture. The series of causes faces us much more completely in each case. We reason, this and that must proceed for that to follow, but we haven't thereby understood anything. Cause and effect, there's probably never such a duality. In truth, a continuum faces us, from which we isolate a few pieces, just as we always perceive a movement only as isolated points. We don't see, we infer. The suddenness with which many effects stands out misleads us. This suddenness exists only for us. There is an infinite number of processes that elude us in the second of suddenness, an intellect that saw cause and effect as a continuum, not as we do, as arbitrary division and dismemberment, that saw the stream of the event, would reject the concept and deny determinedness. When we think of a goal, we condition the thoughts of our own process and how we consider that goal. When we say, I want freedom for man, what the fuck does that even mean? It's genuine question. When we do that, though, we've conditioned what is possible in leading up to that. We have created inferences, and not just normal inferences. Inferences is brutal. We don't understand inferences. It's a disjunction, it's logic. Go study symbolic logic. There's exclusive and inclusive disjunctions. And the way it operates is pretty simple. Exclusive disjunctions is how a lot of us sort of work, how things often are used to. It's this or that logic gates, really simple. One that's more confusing in computer science is an inclusive, where it's either or, because the inference opens up potential, opens up possibilities, doesn't have the closed in. We don't do that. We have cause and effect. The goal creates the line. This, then that, then that, then that, then that. Not multitude of reasons, not a multitude of possibilities. So when we have a goal, when we think we know what we ought to be doing, it actually creates the solution for us. We think we've created it, but it made us. And this is the great challenge we have in the sort of world we live in today, because we are fucked in this way, absolutely. The people in charge live this way. This is how they operate. They work like this. and they don't even know it. And most of the people who vote for them don't either. Hey,
Hi.
welcome back.
How's it going? Do you need one?
You said to entertain chat.
Did we start doing an impromptu reading of what's his face?
Nietzsche.
Oh, it's 500 subs. So go find me at this point like 97 friends, please. Yes, you're good. You know, my doctor's like, you should get a dog because it will help you with your health, and he has. However, you get a dog, help you with your panic attacks. It turns out the dog also has anxiety, right?
I love pups.
He's
They're
a
great.
good boy. I adopted him. My family's always, when we adopted dogs, got the guy at the shelter that no one else will take, and he's a good boy. Because there are no bad dogs, only bad dog owners.
Jandrix, it is not fatalistic. It sounds like it. I know it sounds like it, but it's not fatalistic. It's dismissing the idea of destiny, or embraces destiny, getting rid of necessity. A thing had to happen because there was no other option. Is different than destiny, which is the path that we travel as we go. There's a lot of interesting interplays there when you talk about sort of fate and how these things can operate. That's a whole other discussion. Apologies, Daedalus. I'm very sorry.
No, I took a philosophy 101 course and stopped. Actually, I took sentential logic too. That's a lie. That was technically a philosophy course, but also math. I did everything. I did everything in my power to avoid calculus in college.
I know the feeling. I mean, you technically didn't. I did everything in my power by not going to college.
Okay, fair. Everything in my power within the limits provided to me by the institution. Like, you must have some kind of math class. Oh,
I went for 3 weeks, and there's a bunch of courses. One of them was creative writing, and I talk a lot. I've always sort of had a little bit of a gift of the gab, and I can do that. I can write. It's good. And I wrote this piece, and the teacher was like, "Oh, this is exactly the type of essay," and he was great. And I was like excited. Second came around, and he gave me a D. And I was like, "The fuck?" And he like marked me down, and he had a bunch of notes. He's like, "You just didn't improve enough." And I'm like, is it worse than ever? It's like,
no.
And
yeah.
it was like this moment, and I was so furious. I stewed on it all night. I went back the next day, and I couldn't find parking. That was it. That's the.
Yeah. I didn't really find my mark until I hit. Like, I didn't do anything not in college that wasn't rote, like do the thing because you're told to do the thing. Yeah, your camera has died. Let's see.
It has? I'm still streaming on Discord. It shows it for me.
Yeah, you're stuck for some reason on Discord. I don't know why. Yeah. Let me see if I turn this off and turn it on.
I am looking. Oh God, really? It's all fucked up. Let me get to your stream. Let me see what it looks like. Yeah, it's all fucked. What the fuck, Brooks? Why would you do this? I'm an asshole. What is with me?
But yeah, I never really hit my stride until like my third year. And in my third year, I became eligible to start taking... Oh, uh-oh. Hey, Insomnia. I gotta bring this back up. All right.
Hello?
Yes. No, I... Don't leave the room.
I mean, I'd click the button. I fucking Discord. It's Discord. Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Fucking
Hey,
the goddamn
Gabriel.
app. As soon as I turned off my camera, my app crashed because it's a really well-built app that certainly doesn't.
You know, Discord fired 100 people like 3 weeks ago, right? Right in time for Christmas.
They weren't engineers, I can tell you that.
Yes. No, I didn't really hit my stride in school till I got to like my third year, and I started taking advanced history courses and could direct my own research, right? And that's when I started doing well and enjoying what I
I have
did.
no idea what that feels like.
Um, the other one, the other one,
It
like
sounds good though.
the one that really pushed me in a particular direction. My battalion commander for ROTC, he had me take. Army cadets have to take a semester of military history, which is ridiculously little,
Mm-hmm.
by the way. Uh, so I
Yeah,
take
that's
this.
unless you go into officer school.
Well, no, that is officer school. That's basic officer school. One semester. You take
Really?
more. You take more as you go, as you
My uncle always
advance in
told me
rank.
it was more than that.
It might have been back then, but today it's a minimum of one semester. So you made me take the course, and I think you'll do well here, and I did. Very well. So much they gave me a medal, which eventually determined what my concentration ended up being, and that set and the other, and here we are. Um,
Ugh.
Yeah, no, also college very much is not a question like people think that having a college degree is a mark of intelligence. What it is a mark of endurance. What are you willing to endure, and do you
Uh,
need to endure it?
I think that I think it's half and half. It's one of those things I can say that I missed by not going. Is as much as everyone's like it teaches you to do this, and it's like it teaches you to be organized in a very specific way. It's a very unique, useful skill set. How to take notes, how to do those. I never did these things. I skipped past school and I went right into the workforce. Right, and I was lucky to be able to get there, but it was brutal. And then on top of it, like I had to like go learn how to take notes. I had to go learn how to do bibliographies. I had to go learn how to like all the stuff that's like the formalism of what I would call academia, but even in the real world I just never had any experience with, and it's a bear to learn. It sucks.
It's a lot. No, it's a lot. It I think it puts a lot of people off that might otherwise excel. Because they have I think passion for subject material will take you a lot farther in secondary education than anything else. Like, what do you want to do, and do you want to do it, and are you inspired by a good professor? Blah 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 blah, stuff like that. One of the things that taught me what the value of a good teacher was is when I was in high school and I had to take physics. Right, not good.
Okay.
Not I don't like math. I'm not don't have a lot of fun with it. This guy, he's a doctor. He's a professor. His job prior to teaching high school was he goes to Russia and helps them disarm nuclear weapons, right? Oh, eminently qualified, way overqualified to sit in a high school class and teach. But he comes in there and he's like incredibly passionate about his topic, incredibly passionate about teaching it, even to the kids who don't want to learn it. And the only reason he's teaching high school at all is because he wants to coach like sports. And like
Interesting.
I do chemistry my sophomore year, I get a C because I give no craps. I got like B pluses all throughout my physics year because this guy just he made you want to.
Well, they're
the
people
thing.
who shouldn't be teaching almost, or teaching is almost an accident of a secondary thing. My physics teacher, so specifically physics, actually, I was in AP Physics my junior year, and AP Physics, we'll just say I didn't do well in school. I didn't like teachers. I didn't enjoy dealing with authority. I had one class that I went to 3 times in the semester. I didn't fucking care. I hated all of it. But it was unique because he, like your dude, was kind of there. For him, it was because he had gotten a higher level degree. And the way that schools in some states do this, Colorado used to, I don't know if they'd still do, but the school and the district will pay down your college debt if you work as a teacher. It becomes a thing that sort of bonuses. So you kind of can work and also get some of your school debt taken down. And he needed to do it for a couple of years because he was in debt. Did it for like 4 or 5 years and then left. And I guess he went to work at like Coors and he's like a brewmaster or works in the chemical group there. Some crazy shit. It's great.
Every
But
sixth person in Colorado works for a brewery, by the way, everybody.
It's kind of, I mean, that probably is how it feels now, isn't it?
I'm a little I'm since I've moved here been kind of alarmed by the drinking culture, but that's beside the point.
People don't understand what it means to drink until they've lived in Denver. And that's like Chicago would be up there, Milwaukee. These are alcohol drinker town.
Chicago we drank, but like Denver they'll drink and like people will drive them and then they'll be like, yeah, it's fine. Like, no, it's not fine. It's not fine.
There was a bar called Shooters when I was 23. My brother and I would go there when he turned 21, and we went with friends. It was 50-cent you call it.
Oh, okay.
So, and you can imagine every time we went was a fist fight in one way or another, someone looking at someone's girl or saying the wrong thing. And I had a friend coming in from out of town who wanted to join us. I'm like, dude, we're going to go out, hang in, because again, I'm not saying it's like brag. I can hold my booze. My brother and I both like grew up drinking. He was, oh no, we'll do it. Let's go. We got kicked out of Shooters because he was underneath the table vomiting on himself, passed out.
Oh God.
And we ended up getting a fist fight on the way out. Denver drinking culture is a very unique beast. And I don't think it's the same as it was anymore because it's a lot less redneck now. That place was across from Courts Field, like 2 blocks up. So that type of thing isn't there anymore. That's like, hipster land now.
Yes.
Brewery hipster land. So it's a little different, but I mean, a little bit further up was Cervantes, which was like one of my favorite concert venues. But you wouldn't go there as white guys. No white people went there, so it was like the best. Like local rappers would always play there. It was amazing. Like Denver's changed a lot, though. It's been 20 years for a reason.
2 very distinct drinking cultures in Chicago. And you do one in your 20s when you're going to college, right? And that's all the big bars and the clubs and the crap. Then there is a fantastic music scene and these little hole-in-the-wall places spread out throughout
Lots
the city.
of really great little theaters and venues in Chicago.
Little venues. There's a speakeasy type places that I just love to go to when I still lived there. Like, just great places, good bluegrass music, all kinds of really interesting places to go in Chicago.
Yeah, Denver's different now. I've been back a couple times, and I don't even think it's the same drinking culture as it was. Like it was hard line, man. But it was, that was like late 90s, early 2000s. It was a different time in general.
More people live here in Colorado generally now too, I think. Like the population has boomed. I'm always amazed by the fact that I meet very few native Coloradans.
That was happening back in the day, though. Like that's been a thing that's been pretty regular ever since I was younger. Like native Coloradans, people from California and Texas just started moving in, and then everywhere else. And so it just slowly shifted. Like my neighborhood, my family, if you go by the Denver Post, Rocky Mountain News Building,
okay,
in the front window is a printing press. It's the Kennedy printing press. My great grandfather's. Like we're old Denver family. And there's just like a ton of history there. It's kind of wild, but there was not a lot of people there back in the day. So there's not like people who stuck around. They're in Inglewood, Denver, but most of them sold as soon as they fucking could when the boom happened, because Jesus Christ, houses go for a lot there now.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily give away my location, but the house is here in this particular town. And I think we talked about the town before. Just ridiculously expensive.
And extending on forever. It's bordering on becoming LA. So when I was growing up, here's what I mean when I say that. When I was growing up, you would drive like Denver Metro was like 80th South, like a Littleton area where I grew up.
Yeah.
Up to Denver, and then like Westminster, or like 80th North on the very like North Glen, and then there was fuck all for like a long time, for like miles and miles, emptiness. And then you'd run into different cities. You get to, at the far end, maybe Boulder, if you went 45 minutes down up towards Golden, or around, but there was pockets of cities. And then when you'd go south on I-25 to Colorado Springs, there was nothing. You'd hit Castle Rock with the outlets, just like if you went north far enough to Loveland, you'd hit the outlets.
Yes.
And the culture that exists around those. But there'd be fuck all until you got to almost the academy, Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. Yeah. But now, the last time I went, I've done that drive now all the way north and south, and there is almost no break-in houses. It's fucking wild. It's from like you drive south, there's no interruption. There's just fewer homes, but there's no emptiness. There used to be areas when you drive south, I used to have to fill up my tank before I'd go just to make sure, because you don't want to get lost on the drive down there. But now there's like everything everywhere. So like it's now sprawled out so much that it's just a mass of homes.
No, and like the value of those homes. So my uncle bought this house I'm living in, and I rented from him. He bought it 3 years ago. It's gone up in value of $60,000.
Yeah,
in 3 years, and we're just sitting in it.
Yeah, but and it makes no sense because Denver's one of those cities, and I always ask, what's the industry? I lived there for a long time.
I haven't really identified one, to be perfectly frank. It seems like the industry is houses.
It is, it's kind of real estate in and of itself is kind of the industry. But it isn't, because it doesn't, like, what is doing it? There isn't one.
I don't know.
It's kind of.
I can't answer that question. I don't work.
I've asked people who've lived there for forever, and they go, I don't know. My dad has no idea. He's confused, and he's just like waiting for the bubble to burst.
There's two bubbles I think that's going to burst, because like I look at utility prices around here, and they're very cheap. Electricity here is ridiculously cheap. I don't like.
Yeah.
There's something weird about Colorado. One of the things to kind of note about Colorado is it's very stuck in a certain set of ideas of how they're going to live, and that's not going to work out forever, right? Particularly the particular thing that I point to is water rights, right? We have, and the way we all these towns operate, is that you have X amount of water from this aquifer or that aquifer that you may use, and by golly, do the towns use it.
You use it or you lose it, so they go all the way they can. That's why they have the golf courses often. Like,
yes,
they go wild.
I feel like the sprinkler system that maintains all of these like parkways is just a ridiculous waste. But if you don't use it, and it's not going to last, the Colorado River is eventually going to screw you. So.
Well, it's feast or famine with the Colorado River because of the snowpack.
Yes.
And that's getting worse and worse. Hey, once upon a time, we used to go to St. Mary's Glacier.
That's not there anymore, is it?
Correct. It doesn't exist anymore.
I'm pretty sure it's gone. Yeah. And that's one of those things like my you don't care about that sort of thing in Chicago, right? Lake Michigan is going to be there for the foreseeable future. We're going to have water in Chicago. Not the same here. Like, I now care when it snows in the mountains. Very much.
Yes, it's very different.
I like it here. It's nice. People here.
If I didn't have just a resoundingly large amount of bad memories and horrifying shit, I would love to live in Colorado. Also, I hate dryness. That's a killer for me now. I like humidity. I love being able to get out of the shower and not have to towel off and be dry in 10 minutes. That I miss. But I don't miss waking up in the middle of the night with solid mucus in my throat, hacking, trying to not die.
Yeah, I keep water by my bed for that particular reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to learn some new tricks. It's also a little bit weird to navigate kidney disease wise. Everything here it tries to kill you, food wise. The other thing I think I've noticed is Colorado loves their green hatch chilies, right? They put that shit in everything.
Colorado has a unique Mexican food. So Mexican food is fascinating because of how it gets sort of instantiated in different areas. And Colorado's is very unique.
It's good. It's
very good, but it is deeply unique. And so it's one of those things like when people go, they're like, oh, should I get Mexican? I'm like, look, you just got to be ready. Like, especially if they're from LA or San Diego. I'm like, it ain't what you're used to. It's not that thing. There's a different play in it. It's a different red sauce. It's everything is. It's so fucking good though. And the food scene in general in Denver has always been one of those things. I guess I'll say lately, because the last couple times I've been out, I've had some of the best meals of my life. The food scene's always been feast or famine too. There's like a handful of really amazing restaurants and a lot of really good fast food. Like I miss Chubby's. Chubby's is like, I don't know if you have that where you are.
Not this far north, no. It's more Denver.
Chubby's is the best fast food Mexican in the world. I'll die by that. They have jalapeno poppers that you won't even believe.
Yeah, Jandrix, Colorado is nice. I saw you made a note of like the shooting.
What shooting?
The club, the LGBT club, the last year I think it was.
Was there one in Colorado?
Yes. I want to say.
I kind of don't pay attention to mass shootings anymore.
Yeah, it was the Springs, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Here's the and then there was one in not far from us in Boulder in a Kroger store.
The Boulder one is wild. The Boulder's such an like, again, not that anywhere is like a place to happen, but Boulder's a fascinating little town as a thing. So
Club Q, yes.
Weird. Right, Club Q.
Boulder is Boulder is so. Here's the thing: Colorado has a massive gun culture, but they also have a massive culture of minding their own business 9 times out of 10.
It's a very libertarian.
Yes, my uncle calls it the libertarian West. So, like,
it's a very good way to put it. They're the kind of place who. I use Boulder as my example. They're the kind of place who will like freak out about gun rights and Tabor tax laws and making sure they're free and we're free and we're free. But then they'll also condemn and make illegal art exhibits in the fucking library because they're fucking weirdos. Like it's a really conservative, it's a very religious state.
Yes.
It's a very religious state in a way that it's not on the surface, but it is absolutely terrifyingly, deeply fucking religious.
The only person in my family, direct family, who goes to church is my aunt, and the Catholics are 10 times more Catholicly than the Pope here.
The Catholics in Colorado are the fucking worst, man.
Oh Jesus! They're
the worst. I don't like Catholics as a thing, like casual Catholic, whatever, but like the hardcore. But the Colorado ones, it's the same. Like they have to do it because really there's so few of them in comparison with the evangelicals or the Mormons. And the evangelicals and the Mormons are all fucking wackadoo. So they've got to, step up their game and show that they're just as pious.
Yes, and they do it very politically. They get very involved in trying to ban abortion rights. Very vocal about it. Like, let's put out dolls that we've decorated to be bloody in the church yard. Like, what the fuck? Type stuff. Like, was that necessary type stuff? Yeah.
I feel bad. In high school, we'd get the Mormon kids every day. And there was actually a class you could take seminary, and they'd go to the house next door, and it counted as a class. Public school. There's a
temple in
wacko.
There's a temple in the next town over. Actually, I think there's 2. One of the kids from the temple has taken everyone on Facebook who lives in the town and tries to friend request them in an attempt to convert them.
Yep.
He's been a lot of fun for me personally.
They're insufferable. My brother and I used to take challenge whenever because there's a big Jehovah's Witness crew out there too. Huge.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes.
And my brother and I used to enjoy and sort of take as a challenge how long they would handle sitting with us or hanging out with us. And it was always fun. There's a deeply religious community. In Littleton, where I grew up, is like awful. The suburbs of Denver, north and south side, are some of the most horrifyingly, hilariously stupid religious shit that you've ever seen. Like that, like movie level, villain level religious. Like that woman in every Stephen King movie. That's Littleton, the religious person.
Fort Collins and Greeley seem to be. Speaking of which, I need to ask you: have you ever been to Greeley? And is it not the weirdest fucking place you've ever been to?
Do you know Greeley's the reason 9/11 happened?
Is there some kind of vortex there? I would believe it. Greeley is the town you go to in Star Trek where there's a deep dark secret that Kirk has to uncover.
Do you know who Sai Kutub is?
Yes, but
Sai Kutub went to UNC.
in Greeley.
And while he was there, he noticed all the Americans and how they behaved because he thought it was a beautiful country. He really did. But then he noticed how we treated our yards, specifically, lots of things, but our yards. There were these fields where children were allowed to play, and then there were these yards that were beautiful where people weren't allowed to go. People vainly treating this land that was their own. No one was allowed to touch it. It was to be perfect, but no one was allowed to go on the land or enjoy it or smell a rose or pick a flower or run around on the grass. Children couldn't play. He considered it this ultimate sign of vanity to the point where he literally points it out in his major books and works on founding extreme Islam. Yeah. And if you've been to Greeley, you go, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Every time I go to Greeley,
I'm surprised it wasn't the smell of cow shit.
Yeah, that's the other thing is apparently Greeley's a big ranch town. You smell cow from 3 miles out, but I've never seen one.
I went to a debate in high school that was up there. I mean, every year we went, but one year we were in a hotel that was downwind from the goddamn slaughterhouses.
Oh God.
And we had to leave. We couldn't be in the fucking hotel.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
I live by an area of ranches and I don't smell cow that often. I swear to God. Like I go outside every day and I don't smell cow that often. Like Greeley's just the weirdest place I've ever been. Like, and everyone I talk to agrees. Like there's unless they live in Greeley, in which case they're weird.
Yeah, I think the people who live in Greeley live and work in farms, but beyond that, you have the sort of secondary college town culture that is very clashy with a deeply rural area. It's not a normal college town where you have like a downtown area that's cute and a bunch of little cafes, although it probably does now. It's never really been that. It's a weird college town that sort of isn't a college town and just rural. And so it's fucked up. It really is. It's not like Fort Collins, which I would contrast against it, which is, another college town, rural Colorado, but more college towny.
Yeah, it has a very gentrified downtown in Fort Collins. We go down to Fort Collins sometimes. It's nice. I like it.
I don't even know if I would say it's gentrified. It's always been that way. Like it's always been pretty cool. They built stuff up. The Fox Theater's there. It's fucking amazing theater.
The coolest thing.
Hang out with Lincoln Park there. It's cool.
I gather that Walt Disney used Fort Collins as his inspiration for Maintown in the park in California.
It's something like that. Or Fort Collins used them as the inspiration.
One way or the other.
It really wants to be an East Coast town.
They're incredibly proud of that fact there in Fort Collins. The other thing I did there that was really cool, kind of indulging in my guilty pleasure, the ghost tour that they have for the town. Didn't see any ghosts, but a lot of cool history.
I have not done ghost tours in any of these towns. I've done bar tours. I've done a lot of bar tours in Fort Collins and Greeley, and you know what? I've drank fuck tons way too much in every one of those cities in that stupid state. God damn it. Colorado, what a trip.
No, but Gendrix, it's a place you can function, I think.
That's you had good fish tacos. Was it Illegal Pete's, Palm Dad? Because Illegal Pete's is the shit. Do you have Illegal Pete's? Have they made it north, or is that his thing anymore? Am I nuts? Am I just nuts now?
No, we have an infusion.
I don't know. I should stop talking. I haven't been in any of these places since I was like fucking 20.
We have an infusion of California, and In-N-Out Burger came here recently.
What about Good Times?
Good Times is still here.
Okay.
I like them. I wish they delivered because I don't go out that much. Freddy's is still here, which reminds me of a Steak and Shake Midwestern chain. And I guess Chipotle originates here in Colorado.
It does.
Yes. Now I don't eat at Chipotle because there are 1,000 better Mexican options here. But
I like the nachos and I like the barbacoa.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for that.
they're
It's a PDX pleb. I had a classmate tell me about all the juggalos in Fort Collins. Really? It's been a long life. It's been a long life of many tattoos.
Listeria comes from Listeria is the food poisoning.
The band?
Oh.
No, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry.
Are they playing? Yes.
Maybe it's a band. I don't know. Colorado. Trey and Matt went to high schools right in my area. That's where they went. Littleton Heritage High School in the area.
The other one,
no insomnia. Yeah.
The other one, Estes Park. Very nice, very expensive, hard to breathe.
My longtime best friend got married there, and so I was there for 3 days in a lovely suite near his in this really gorgeous sort of retreat.
Was it
right
the
down
Stanley?
the road from the hotel? It was not the Stanley. It was up the street. Because Stanley is not actually a great hotel to stay at, if you didn't know.
I kind of noticed. I went on a ghost tour there.
I believe it.
You can get me to you can get me to chuck a ridiculous amount of money at you if you're going to walk me through a place and say, "Here's where there's hauntings." Like, for some reason, it just works.
And it turns out it doesn't look anything like the movies.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
But they very much like to tell stories about the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's their thing. But it's because like the idea of being snowed in is common. So I have a story like that. My dad, when he met my mom and before my mom, my dad was a golf pro. Like he'd would train, and he went from like course to course, and they'd pay him to like give lessons there and everything. It's kind of how he made his way to Colorado and around. And I won't say what golf course this was at, but one year he had a contract to stay and teach, and they needed him. They asked, who can volunteer? We need someone to stay over the winter, 1 or 2 people. My dad volunteered. He's like, this will be fun. He wants to get away. It's good money. But it was deeper in the mountains than people want. And they got snowed in, and no one came for like 2 months straight. My dad was basically in isolation in this freaking hotel with his golf course. And he tells like lots of different stories, but the one that I love is there was this piece that was given to the guy who owned the golf course, and ivory, however you feel, but it was ivory sculpture, this stunning piece with like made out of real ivory, and it was like 100 years old, out of some country, and my dad painted it.
Oh God.
So they fired him. As soon as they showed up, the guy was like, "You're fucking fired." He's like, "What?" Because he had painted like the ocean blue and given everyone clothes and like ruined this fucking structure, this statue. It's one of my favorite stories. But being snowed in is a real thing. You get fucked. You probably experienced it. One of the once or twice a year 6-foot blizzards where the city shuts down.
Well, we just basically had one like 2 weeks ago. Like when the winter storm hit the Midwest, like people in Colorado are surprisingly bad at snow.
No, they're not. The California and Texans are bad at snow.
Okay,
they happen to be in Colorado.
But like Chicago, like snow is
that's
a fact of life.
No one moves there because it's Chicago.
Yes, snow is a fact of life for people from Chicago. We just deal with it.
And it's not enjoyable to live there because Chicago and Detroit are the two. It's the two places where I actually thought I was going to die just from being outside.
Yes, from the cold.
Yes, in middle of winter, I was in Detroit's the worst because I was from Colorado. I was visiting my grandma in Detroit. I'd never been there when it was super cold. It turns out like I'd never visited in the winter actually, so I didn't really get it. And I went to go buy cigarettes at a gas station about a half mile down the road that I had seen, and I just put on my jacket and I walked to it. And I made peace with death. It's
a perfectly reasonable thing to do in Colorado. Winter is kind of lovely here.
It's incredible. I have shoveled sidewalks in boxers and a t-shirt because the sun and the heat doesn't hit you the same way. There's no humidity.
Yeah, there's no
Like,
humidity at all. But Chicago, there's a period of time in Chicago that's nice to visit, and if you miss that 5 minutes, you might as well just reschedule. Um,
it's true. Well, there's 5 minutes on both sides of summer, I would say.
yes, it's very short because so the winter it's
Very
humid,
short.
it's humid, and you walk outside and you feel like you've been sliced open, uh, from the cold, and then you do that for like 7 weeks on end. In the summer, it feels like you're trying to swim places because it's so humid out and it's 100 degrees in the shade, and shade doesn't do anything right in that kind of humidity. So you can walk in the
No.
shade and you're like, well, at least it's not bright. Here, I can
Yeah,
go
it's brutal. And in Denver, the shade will literally be 20 degrees cooler.
Yeah, 10 degrees. Like wow, this makes a huge difference. I take Avery out to go on a walk in the summer, and if we go too far, he'll stand in the shade for 5 minutes because he's like, "No, Dad, we're not doing this," because the shade is better. Like, not a thing that would happen in Chicago.
Nope.
So that naturally raises the question of why do people live in Chicago? Has excellent food, best pizza you can find.
Chicago is one of the few American cities left that has a culture of its own.
Yes, like, and here's
That's why people stay there. I've been, and I do love it. I can't live there, but it is a culture of its own.
Yes, one of the things. Yes, you're a good guy.
New York doesn't have that anymore. Detroit, Baltimore, Boston does. Boston for sure does. Denver doesn't. Denver doesn't feel like something unique anymore.
Yeah, I was kind of because when I moved here, right, I packed everything up and we put it on a truck and we shipped it out, right. Uh, I took the train. It was the middle of the pandemic. I didn't want to take a plane, right? So I got on an Amtrak for basically a day and a half, which was the coolest damn thing, by the way. I recommend it immensely. But when I got here, I felt like, wow, this feels very much like any other city I've been to in a while.
You don't feel it. Yeah, it's very, there's like really 5 or 6 city archetypes that exist in the country right now. And they're kind of that everywhere you go. The exceptions are going to be stuff on the East and West Coast. Like there's a handful of exceptions. Chicago is an exception for sure. But
Seattle,
everywhere else, like I said, West Coast. So like Portland, very much a unique flavor. Like Portland's Portland. San Francisco lost a lot of what made San Francisco great, but it still has something at least itself. LA is fucking unique, thank God. San Diego too. But like, I don't know, you go through like Topeka.
I don't remember.
Whatever.
I did. I've been through Topeka. I don't remember it though.
I've been through it a fuck ton. I used to do drives along the highway. We'd drive out to see friends in New York or Washington, D.C. I'd take road trips a couple times a summer.
Nashville was kind of interesting when I was there.
Nashville's unique. I would agree with that.
However, I don't like country music, so I was in agony for much of the week.
Austin used to be different, but Austin isn't anymore. Dallas is just like a lot of other cities. Houston is not drastically different. It's kind of wild. We've flattened the world.
But yeah, like why do you live in Chicago? Because the food is pretty good. The people are kind of jackasses from time to time, but yeah. That's another thing I noticed. Like I worked for a while for a car parts company, a fairly big one. And so I had to do trainings to be a salesperson and whatnot, right? And like we'd go in there and it'd be like all the people from all the stores all around, like, yeah, you guys in Chicago proper are just mean. Like, what'd you do wrong? Atlanta is kind of, I don't think I've ever been to Atlanta outside.
No, 313, very cool. ATL is fucking killer, very unique. But how to put this?
I've been in
not the white areas.
The airport is the airport.
Not the white areas.
So I can't speak to Atlanta.
Atlanta, the white areas are just kind of southern suburby things.
Yay.
But you get to the cool areas, even a little bit outside the city, I should say. Like there's some places like I have friends around the area. There's some cool shit, but it's still generic. There's areas of ATL that are fucking wild though, still,
Everywhere I've been in
and like
Florida
super cool.
has been miserable. Like I don't know why people live there.
Florida is miserable. That's why.
Yes, I don't know why people live there. Like what makes
Miami is unique. I will say Miami's unique. It's and I mean it's said that in 2 years it will be underwater, but it is unique.
You know what was a cool place to visit was Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, there's a couple of smaller southern cities. I don't. You know what? New Orleans used to be. I mean, I don't know if it still maintains that. It's one of the things that post Katrina, they sort of never really recovered. And I've always been curious how that panned out. I haven't been in years and years and years. Because the last time I went, well, this isn't like it used to be. And that was that.
Ybor City? Why does that ring a bell? Is that
Ybor City? I don't.
Why do I know?
I have no idea.
Oh, in Tampa.
Oh, good fucking Christ!
Oh, insomnia. That's just not okay. Remind us of specific places in Florida. Why don't you?
But you run into like there's a flattening, and it's just kind of. You used to drive and see different fast food places or try different stuff, or I used to get excited about running into a Taco John's, or because it was unique in a place, you know. That's all gone.
Taco John's is infinitely better than Taco Bell, but that's beside the point.
No disagreement, but now they're everywhere. Who gives a fuck? It's like, you know, some level of region based, but that's still going away.
Yeah.
Florida sucks. Sorry, insomnia. Although I like
Omaha?
alligator. And they should open a gator farm.
Actually, it's one of the things I tried.
Food of the future. Eat dinosaurs.
It's one of the things I tried in Nashville. That's surprisingly good. Fried alligator.
It's very, very. Alligator is delicious, and I don't mean that slightly. I mean it's one of my favorite things. Alligator balls are amazing. Alligator sausage is phenomenal. Alligator steaks. Oh God!
Like what chicken was intended to be.
It's chicken steak. Chicken steak lobster, kind of.
Yes. It's an excellent.
Omaha has good bars. Insomnia. That's all I've got. Sorry.
I've never been. I've actually managed to avoid Nebraska entirely. I think I catapulted over it once.
Can't help it. You get on I-70 from Colorado, and you kind of got to go up through something.
I've been to Wyoming. That was interesting.
Yeah, you don't want to go up and over though. It's just easier to go through. You end up like going by like Rock Island.
Yeah. Which
is not as exciting as it sounds in any capacity of the word Rock Island. At all.
Well,
in any way.
The train line I would take from the suburbs into Chicago when I was a kid. And actually for a good portion of the time when I go back to visit my family, it's the Rock Island Express in Illinois.
I think with that, I'm going to go finish up dinner. I got to paint my nails while we chatted. I'm glad we got to have this chat.
Yeah, I think it was good. Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, we're getting at that point. My back is starting to kill me anyway.
Yeah, no.
So that means that we're going to start to put this up. Wednesday night, guys, me and Hetman are going to be back. We are going to be talking about the Constitutional Convention, continuing our year-long series on American political history. So tune in. It should be fun. Thank you for showing up tonight.
Are you going to go over how feasible it is that we're going to have another constitutional convention?
Probably, but I shudder to think.
I hear that it's all the rage and that we're totally going to do it.
I shudder to think of what happens if this was the norm, because who gets to make those decisions? Who pays for the seats, right? Sorry.
I mean, no one cares. Like literally, like everything's. My last words. The worst part about change is that it is incredibly slow and it doesn't feel like it.
Yes, it's change is an agony to those to whom it matters. All right.
Enjoy.
Have a good night, everybody. I'm going to